Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be welcoming Matt Pellowe, who's a friend of mine, actually. It's been a while now. I think we know each other 4-5 years, Matt?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll come to it, something like that. We actually got to know each other from and through our glorious industry, insurance, reinsurance, broking. Let's invite everybody. Let's embed the whole ecosystem. Essentially, we have many things in common. I did already cover insurance, and obviously, the background there, but we're both ADHD. Can we hear a little bit more about you in terms of introduction about yourself, but also in terms of your insurance industry journey so far?
Good morning, Vina, and thank you for inviting me to come on and have this chat. I'll try and keep it on topic as much as I can, but as I've learned, I tend to go off on different tangents, so do bring me back. Yeah, we met quite a few years ago in the insurance industry. I've been in the insurance industry for 29 years. I've worked with brokers. I've worked sort of on the periphery of Lloyd's over those time, and it's been a fantastic journey, to be honest. I've learned a lot, and having worked on the underwriting side and had a pen, now in the broking side, I do like working with clients. I like the connections with people. I enjoy that, but I think ultimately, I just like the challenge. I like the idea of someone saying, "We have a problem. Can you solve it?" And it's just a natural fit for what I now know is a head that processes information differently. If I put myself in the position of someone within an organization who wants to embrace neurodiversity, where do you start? It's a challenge. But I also think, from my standpoint, there's a fear of being judged, but there's also a fear of being misunderstood. So I think fear is a driver to people's behaviors about masking and coping. And I get that, and I understand that. And, I'm, as you know, I'm quite a confident extrovert guy, but it doesn't mean I don't have the crisis of confidence. Now, people will argue, yes, but we all suffer with that. And no, that's true. But my sensitivities are far more pronounced because I have ADHD. How do you then explain to an audience what ADHD is when they've heard ADHD from Vina and they go, well, that doesn't sound like Vina? No, it isn't. But there is a big spectrum and there's a big range, and we're like a graphic equalizer where I'm up one day and down the other. And then all of a sudden, I think in that articulation, you can lose the person, you can lose the interest and the curiosity because it just doesn't make sense. So I think in terms of trying to, if you're confident, talk about it, try to explain it, but you need the other side to be open and to have a willingness to hear you. I just, from my standpoint, I need to be understood. I need to be heard. I need to know that the other person is not just dismissing what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm okay because I would just shout a little bit louder if you're not listening to me. But then that comes with the experience that I've got and the fact that I've got a few grey hairs and nearly 50 years of age. If you're younger and you don't have that experience, you're going to not necessarily be comfortable leaning into that fear and saying, I have a voice, I need to explain things. So I think, if I summarize that, is what you want is the other side to be open, to be curious, and to have a willingness to listen. I don't think we have to solve everything on day one, but people need to know that they can go and have a conversation without fear of judgment and know that they're going to be heard and understood. But that's just I think that's a human thing, but we need to bring that into the neurodiverse conversation when you're talking about employers and employees. I feel quite blessed and privileged to be working for a multicultural, inclusive organization where, for me, it was a conversation. Hey, I've got a label. This is what it means. But actually, I don't know what it means because I've got to unpick 48 years of masking, coping mechanisms, overcorrecting, and actually find out who I am. I get to self-managed, and I know that I'm in a very, very privileged position to be able to do that. But I also recognize that that's not the case for a lot of people. So again, if I start talking about what I'm doing at the moment or what's working, hopefully it just helps other people in terms of, okay, I could try that and have that conversation. But even, with the confidence that I've got and the position I have in the organisation, it's still, I've got to tell them I've got ADHD. And it was like, right, how do I do this? You know, because you want that person that you're going to talk to hear you and not dismiss you.
Absolutely. 100%. I remember some 12 years ago, and at the time I was in Germany, one of my sort of managers at the time said to me, Vina, everything is great. I mean, you know, you're so fast, you're thinking, so sharp. But, you know, for the love of God, when you say something, you have to acknowledge you might be quiet. Give people time to process it and give them like time, as in not 5 minutes. Give them days, months, years, and then we get there. And I thought, oh my God, what a lack of optimization of my own sort of input, because if I cannot do that, and if I cannot sort of, you know, give you my energy, I don't think I've got much else.
Yeah.
Actually, you know.
Yeah. It's that's been put to me a couple of times. And it's an interesting one because I think they, not to the extent that it's, you know, I just remember so many occasions when I'm talking about an idea and there was one particular employer who have whiteboards and I'd be drawing schematics and, you know,
Yeah.
it's my head is like a whiteboard. I know from A to Z, I get to Z and I can work back and I know the route. But ask me to articulate, well, what's this route? What's the thought process? Well, I started at the end and I worked my way back. Another good example is annual training, where what I've realized is, and again, this goes back, you know, the things that you discover about yourself is you do the annual compliance and regulatory training, which I'm sure the industry, you know, are very supportive of, and we all love to do the annual training again.
Last minute.
But it's one of those things whereby you have to go through copious amounts of slides and words to then do 10 questions that you have to get it right. It's not actually, it's just a test of memory. All I want you to do is you tell me what I need to know and let me go and find the answer.
Yeah, that 100%.
Oh, which, again, I mean, I'm going to come back to the insurance industries. I've got this weird quirk that I like a policy wording. I like to go through a policy wording. I want to know if that policy wording is right. Is it fit for purpose? No, I don't do it, you know, all the time. But yeah, you can find me going, oh, I'm going to have a look at that. Is that right? What's in there? And, you know, there's a natural sort of curiosity to go, just do things a little bit or very, very differently. But very differently doesn't mean it's bad. You know, the thought process that we have is just different. We process and our working memory can be challenging.
Yeah. Yes.
But you know, I like the terminology or the analogy where they say that I've got a brain that's got, you know, 50 tabs open. I don't know which one I'm going to access necessarily, but I have all those tabs open. So, you know, the capacity for thinking differently and doing things differently is really cool, actually.
Yeah.
Can I say the word cool at 48?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? As you're speaking, I have this great friends. He's one of my best friends. And I've got a few friends. And when I was trying to explain to her about my ADHD, he said, Vina, everything you actually say about short-term memory and all this, I've got it. And I don't think I am neurodivergent. And you know what? So note to self, to those selves out there who'll be listening, and I'm hoping, you know, there will be some souls listening. It's fine. If you don't want to define it as that, or if you don't want to seek diagnosis, what this discussion is all about is really allowing each other the destigmatization of embracing who you are and of really bothering to get to identify who the heck you are, we are. That's going to make our working life, our personal life, our sort of future aspirations and quests, and whatever lifeline we've got left, which thankfully we don't know, specifically, that would be so daunting, to make it count, to make it worth. First and forward, you know, and foremost, rather, for ourselves, I always sort of abide by the oxygen mask, much as I don't pay attention to the airplane sort of instructions nowadays, and I should. So that's not really a suggestion that wouldn't. But it goes back to what they say. First, sort of apply the oxygen mask on yourself and before helping others. Because if you don't do that, your help to others is going to be short-lived and probably, you know, absolutely useless.
Yeah.
So very important to get to know who we are. So important. Fear is a massive thing. And I think reflecting, giving ourselves to reflect, giving ourselves to process, giving ourselves to understand why we behave the way we do, why we felt, like we couldn't sort of look at this person in the eye, or why did we have to sound louder on this occasion? What did we feel was basically impacting us? Where did we feel that our own liberties were being compromised?
Yeah. So having that sort of healthy, safe work environment, and I don't mean from a health and safety standpoint, but I just mean in terms of mental well-being, it's important, particularly for those that are stuck in a system that is effectively broken. They can't get the support. They're waiting to understand what it is they're going to get. I have a personal opinion about post-diagnosis anyway, but, there is a fantastic opportunity for the workplace with what they do around mental and emotional well-being. And again, it's changed markedly so in the last, 10 years for the positive. But, if you're able to wrap your arms around the neurodiverse community and allow them, even if you don't have all the answers, because I accept it's a challenge. I think it's a huge opportunity for the workplace, for different industries to actually help people.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there to replace, a broken health service, but, let's be honest. I got an ADHD diagnosis. I'm privileged to be able to do it privately. But at the end of it, I got the option of medication, which I personal choice. I haven't chose on the basis that I didn't want to wait 6 months to maybe do another 6 months, and it was going to cost me an absolute fortune. And I didn't want to dull the person or change the person that I am. But the therapy is limited as well. So actually, there are some challenges, certainly from an ADHD standpoint, that you get a diagnosis and you go, oh, what next? And then you go, oh, there is nothing next. I just have to get on with life, which is fine. But again, there's organizations like GAIN and others and, other communities that you come and connect with your people. I love that phrase. You find your people.
Yeah, your tribe.
The process. But again, your people should also be in the workplace. I trust my team. I trust my employer. And it's a great feeling that I can sort of comfortably begin to unmask and just be myself, as opposed to, I think in the past, I would have sat there rigid with a shirt and tie and go yes or no. Now I'm going to bounce around the screen. I'm going to lean forward. Even now, this is about 10% of what I would normally do because I get up and walk around the room. It's just one component part of being your authentic self. But I think, that's the key is, you want to have no fear in unmasking and just being who you are, because you're not bringing anything other than just your authentic self. It goes back to what you're saying, who you are and what you do, whether you run, whether you fish, you like cooking or whatever it is you do, all of that is part of you and your personality and your makeup. Why shouldn't you be able to bring that to work?
Absolutely. And you know what? There's a competitive advantage benefit there. And I don't want to sort of sound academic here, but really common sense, sort of trickling down thoughts, connecting in the end. You're speaking about things that sort of put the fire in your belly and finding others, because, you spoke about fishing and running or whatever. These are the kind of hobbies thing, the music that connects people dearly and deeply, actually. And imagine tomorrow you have to sort of do some transactions, some sort of, cross-class, some multi-line sort of business. You go and tap on the door or tap on the, footstep of this person who and you know that you have actually something in common, and you already have a friend, you already have somebody who's open enough to think outside of the box, of the silo, of the P&L for the NLOB, and is now willing to help you get it, and is now willing to, again, break down those silos, the internal, and go external and sort of start thinking, how does the client feel? How would I be able to sort of embrace this opportunity and sort of, support the broker, if that was a broker sort of mediated sort of business, for them to get to acknowledge who we are, how the ethos and the way that we're working. And I don't want to sort of go very heavy here, but that might indeed save us from one too many pay-to-play kind of schemes. Not that we do them, of course, but, but if you already have this kind of stand, if you already have the element of there's a carrier, and we can always sort of, reverse this example. who I'm very proud and happy to present to my clients because they're bold and they will tell them and they won't disclose IP, God forbid, but of course they will actually try to reason and they will try to understand. In that way, we break down also Chinese whispers. Having this openness, having this understanding, knowing the people already in this industry, knowing them as people first and foremost, before you start critiquing whether they're good property underwriters or not, would be so important. And I think, and you mentioned trust, ultimately it boils down to trust and engagement. Why are many employees disengaged? Because they keep on getting sent this other sort of survey link. They fill it out, they don't hear about it, or they hear some sort of, they receive some sort of schematics about this is what the data shows. Yeah, what's going to happen with this data? What is the data trying to respond to? Who's monitoring it? Who up in the leadership sort of board, the board, is going to do something about it? When are these people coming down, my level to start engaging and understanding and sort of interacting to really create sustainable, I call it conscious evolution. I've decided that I'm slightly falling apart in terms of my appreciation of innovation. Everybody's talking innovation. And you know what? I have nothing against innovation. I love innovation too, but innovation for money, innovation for purpose, innovation for innovation because we do like another chart with keywords. Yeah. Conscious evolution. We, as species, we need to evolve, but let's make it conscious rather than allowing Darwin or whoever, succeeding that to sort of, define it. Sorry, I spoke too much, but I feel like sharing.
Had to get that out of your system. That's fine. There's so many different parts to that, but again, I think it just comes down to I believe there is a genuine want from an employer standpoint, not because they're being forced, but there's a genuine curiosity. But I think putting that into this sort of the neurodiverse community is. There's no point asking me how it is to be autistic. Well, I don't know. But you can ask me about ADHD. Oh, by the way, if you ask 10 of us with ADHD, you're going to get 10 different answers. I then put myself into the person who's trying to collate that information to say, right, we need 10 different guidelines, 10 different manuals. Oh, well, we've got to do this for all the different conditions. If I was sitting there within the C-suite going, what do I do? We've got 40% of our workforce are neurodivergent. What are we supposed to do? I mean, but at least have the conversation. I think that's where it starts because, I've been around long enough to know within our industry and, like many sort of corporate entities that I think, yes, there's profits and yes, there's shareholders, but they do care about their people and they want the best. Whether or not it's implemented on a day-to-day basis, that's down to the individuals and human nature for what it is. But I think it's interesting that, it's like we're two magnets at the moment whereby, we're like, oh, another survey.
Absolutely.
So, do we take it seriously? Chances are no. Exactly to the point that you were saying in terms of what happens with this information. How are you going to use it? How is it going to better, on whatever subject matter?
Yeah.
But then from the other side is they're like, well, we just know to get the information. To get the information, we're learning. Okay, but what are you going to do with that? And we're like, just another survey. What's the point? So I think there's certainly more of a conversation around what it is like for us to be us, but to be able to do that in an environment which you're not going to get judged, or people will be out of fear as to, just because my head thinks differently doesn't mean that I can't do my job.
Absolutely.
And, I think the value that we can bring to an organization in terms of our strengths, because I think there's an automatic default to, well, what are the weaknesses?
Yep.
So how's it going to prevent? I've got a load of strengths. I won't understand them all, but I think the other day, I'll give you a good example. About 8 o'clock in the evening, the other day, I was doing a presentation, and 30 pages later and 7 hours later at 3 in the morning, I hadn't got up, I hadn't drank anything, and I just sat there and went, oh dear. I mean, time blindness and hyperfocus does come on its downside. I loved what I'd produced, the body of work. Now, HR would go, that's not healthy. Yeah, I know it's not, but wow, did I get a dopamine rush out of what I've just done. And I was so proud of myself at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Absolutely.
But that's the conversation, which is,
Yeah.
if your HR, oh my God, why is this person working at these hours? Just let me get on with it, because that's me. That's the world I
100%.
live in.
100%. 100%. I don't like box thinking, but quite often, yeah, when we went from nothing in terms of this anthropocentric sort of well-being and sort of looking, we really want to genuinely look after you. And yes, I get you, and I absolutely agree. There are organizations out there who really genuinely care. That's felt. But then we care so much that we almost want to sort of, make it yet another process, as in the process of, do not share emails outside the times of, I don't know, 9 to 5. Like, for God's sakes, I'm a night owl. I perform my best nighttime. It's just, this is when I have peace and quiet. Sometimes you'll find me with a brush and a paint, and I will actually start painting rooms if I don't sort of hang sort of, art all around. And I treat my walls as a little gallery. So I sort of move things around and just, crazy things like that. But I work in the nighttime. Yeah. And I forget. And it's like 3 a.m. and you're thinking, oh no, I've got a 9 a.m. How is that going to sort of, work out? But this is where productivity, and that's ultimately productivity. Look, the economist in me says, when we're having companies' sort of main objective, it is, purely speaking, maximizing the returns to its shareholders.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, you cannot tamper with, in a capitalistic system, as we all acknowledge to be in. This is the main objective of a corporation. However, if we start sort of highlighting, and this is where data is very important, but I wanted technologies to sort of help me optimize, this data sort of crunching and obviously the reading of it.
Yeah.
But I want social scientists. Social sciences, meanwhile, thankfully called the hard sciences, because it's bloody hard to understand, people's behavior. Okay, that was semi-swearing. I don't think it was fully, right? So I want those two to coexist. I want technologists and social scientists and people driven sort of, professions to coexist, to understand the how, technology, and the why and the who for, the people, professionals. And this is what I need to sort of see, because those two, this data done together, without any attrition, without friction, without sort of these misunderstandings, we just do it to tick a box because the regulator is asking us to sort of, show that we have sufficient numbers of emails on the board, and things like that. No, we do that because we want to show to our shareholders that if you want to maximize your returns, you need to maximize your productivity. Productivity comes from the employees, right? And the more connected, aligned, appreciated, the sense of belonging in a safe environment those employees feel, because they're humans and they take, the bad things that happen in their lives, unavoidable, that bad thing will be happening. And they feel like it's okay. We care about you. We're here to support you. A day is not working out for you. It's okay.
I think there's an interesting, it's again, from a personal standpoint, it's been some interesting conversations I've had with, just friends that I've now made in the sort of ADHD community. And we talk about, this productivity and allowing employees to thrive. And other things it comes down to is, okay, you've got the fear of going to your supervisor, your manager, your HR, and saying, I have a label, whatever you want to describe it to yourself or whatever it is, and saying, as I work my way through this, I might need some adjustments, accommodations. And the conversation is really in terms of, okay, am I going to get judged? Am I going to get what I want? What is deemed reasonable? Certainly from the UK and the Equalities Act. But it's recognising to have that conversation. So you can do the self-advocacy. But the other thing is, and this is just a general conversation, is there's a fear from the other side that we are getting an unfair advantage in terms of the accommodations and the adjustments. Actually, we're not. What we're asking for is the accommodation adjustments to bring us up to the level that we should be operating in. For me, I got this. So I have this regularly with me. I have this during the working day. I have a set of noise cancelling earbuds. The lights are on because we're doing a video podcast, but normally I'd work in, I'm very impacted by a sensory environment. So I control this because I work from home, but I can understand to going into the work environment, I work better, I think better when I'm moving because I've got this internal motor. This is so painful because I'm having to sit here and we're doing this sort of talking.
Oh, no. I was
Normally
expecting something.
I'd want to be up and moving. And
Yeah.
the work environment, but my work environment and working in an office is very different to on a forklift or a building site.
Yes.
So the accommodations that we're looking for is actually to help us operate at the level that we know that we can without the impact of sensory or whatever it might be, dependent on your condition. So I think that's a great conversation whereby, no, we're not getting an advantage. This is not an advantage because at the moment I'm operating at a disadvantage because I'm being asked to fit while I'm back in the box again because you have to operate like this. So I think, to go back to your point in terms of, an organization wants to have the return, on investment, they want a thriving population, a thriving community of employees who are enjoying their jobs. If I know that I can get up, walk around, and I'm not being forced to look at Vina and maintain eye contact, and I can look off and just be a little bit more of who I am because I have ADHD, if I'm allowed to operate and function what for me is my authentic human being, I'm just going to be better. I'm going to be more productive. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be healthier emotionally because I'm not masked. I'm not trying to conform to someone else's set of rules and standards. So I think, it's definitely a conversation that needs to be having. But again, go back to the fear is I'm not asking for a reward.
Yeah.
I'm asking for the accommodations and adjustments because it's going to allow me to deliver more and operate in a better environment and a healthier environment. But again, I can only talk about it from an ADHD, but I think that is part of the conversation.
Yeah. And you don't have to prove yourself for it, which is, I find occasionally people say, oh, do something good, be successful, give them, this extra sort of 10 million worth of accounts. And then you can say, now can I have my headphones? No. That goes already. That's why, we're trying to align forces here and sort of amplify our voices and really project on our tribe and other tribes, because you said it so beautifully earlier. GAIN is not here to exist in silo or on its own. We are not about receiving any limelight. Most of us, apart from 2 employees, basically who are paid, the rest of us are volunteers. And the objective towards which we're working is that one day GAIN will be not needed any longer. But to get to that point, especially as you speak into, I'm digressing now, but I'll finish this sentence and I'll go back to what we're discussing. I just want to sort of highlight this. Corporate members or potential corporate members will come a point, and 1 or 2 times I've had this discussion because of this sort of safe environment and the openness that I am blessed to have with some people, that, Vina, we're coming to a point that we're having too many of such communities onboarded. How can we make ourselves available to create these events, to have this sort of breakfast and learns, to embed the training necessary, because it's a dozen of you. And this is where I think another sort of level of moral responsibility comes, these sort of interest groups, to align with each other, to try and identify, to almost create smaller Venn diagrams, find the sweet spot, identify where we all want to sort of do. And quite often, Matt, you won't be surprised to know that whether you're dealing with homelessness or with, violence at home, or with neurodivergence, or with disability or physical disability, or anything else, the bottom line, the Venn diagram sort of, sweet spots, the common sort of, ground is essentially, you want people to belong. You want people to be fairly open, to know that they have places and people to go and sort of confide in and try together to create solutions or adjustments, accommodations, ways, scenarios that are going to help them perform the work to the best of their ability. And essentially, my ideal sort of, positioning would be to realize and fulfill the true potential. I don't know my true potential. I've got some guidance as to where I'm intrinsically sort of, triggered by, where my respectful curiosity lies, and the things that I like to do, outside or during, the work. But so far, I've been remunerated handsomely for doing a set amount of, tasks and deliver them. And that's great. But often enough when you're thinking, but it makes sense that you can go, you can go slightly outside.
Yeah, but that is more about the restrictions of the roles and responsibilities. And again, I come back to this phrase, it's the box that you have to operate in. I think as we become more self-aware and more understanding of what our strengths are, and obviously recognizing our weaknesses, you're then in an environment where you can, you want to be in that workplace environment where it's celebrated that you do want to branch out, because your curiosity and your passion, for me, another dopamine rush, is I want to get my teeth into this. And it's you're wanting that environment where you can then start to collaborate with these other areas to say, okay, this person thinks differently. It's a medical fact. I think differently. I'm okay with that. Label or no label, that's just I'm comfortable with that. But okay, what can I bring to the table? I think that there's more collaboration, more understanding. It's just not asking. What I don't want to do is, again, I keep coming back to, is I don't want to fit in the box.
Yes.
That's not my box. And but what I can do is bring different skills to the table. And I think that's what I think a lot of people want to, is just the opportunity and the chance to bring their authentic self to the table.